Hello, my name is Sophie, and welcome to my July reading wrap-up. This month was definitely more successful than June, although I still didn't read all of the books on my TBR for this month. Oops. I think my issue is I don't lock in hard enough at the beginning of the month. You know, I need to be locked in from the first. Rather than be trying to cram a whole book into the last couple of days, I need to be starting out strong. We live and we learn. Am I right? Anyways, I'm pleased to announce that the total number of books that I consumed this month was 6. That's like double what we read last month. 2 of those books were audiobooks, and those were Bound and Barbed by Samantha R. Good and Enemies of the State by Tao Bauer. The physical books that I read this month were You Have My Attention by Rebel Rose, King of Pride by Anna Huang, King of Greed by Anna Huang, and A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. The book that I didn't read from my July TBR was Caraval, but I am currently reading it as we speak. Don't worry, okay? I am getting there. Now, before we get started on my thoughts and feelings about all of the books that I read, I want to know what you read this month. And I also want to know if you have read any of the books that I am talking about in this video and what you thought. So, let me know. All right, I reckon that's enough introing. Let's get straight into it. We are going to go through the books in the order that I read them. So the book we're going to be talking about first is You Have My Attention by Rebel Rose. Ugh. A shiver just ran down my spine, and not in a good way. Alright, for a little bit of information about You Have My Attention, this book is a 382-page dark stalker romance, revolving around Bastien, the stalker, and Laurette, the stalkee. Laurette is this high-powered attorney fighting for justice for victims. And Bastien is a criminal who takes out other, much worse criminals for money. So I guess they're both fighting for justice in their own special ways. At the beginning of the book, Laurette has just gotten out of a very sucky relationship. And this is when Bastien starts stalking her. But he's stalking her in kind of a consensual way. Like, he basically said to her,
I want to stalk you. Is that okay?
And she was like, what the heck? Yeah. What the heck? Stalk me, I guess. Yes. However, just as they're having a grand old time with the stalking and all that, a case that Laurette is working on starts getting pretty dangerous, and Bastien might be the only one who can protect her. That was some suspenseful music. The blurb doesn't really give us any of the information that I just told you, but that's because the blurb, much like the rest of the book, is bad. And it gives you no real idea of what the book is actually about. So, I came up with my own little blurb, just for you. You're welcome. Okay, now we will get into what I thought of the book. And in case my facial expressions haven't given you any ideas, I did not enjoy it. And there are several reasons for that, which we will get into shortly. So, I was actually really excited about the first couple of chapters of this book. It was not the start that I was expecting it to be. You know, it wasn't your stereotypical dark romance book beginning. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm intrigued. Some could say, you have my attention. Get it? Get it? I'm hilarious. So, needless to say, I was pretty excited to see where this would go. However, after those first couple of chapters, the writing started to feel super off. And at first I thought maybe it had been translated from another language into English. But then I started thinking that maybe it was something more sinister. And by something more sinister, I mean AI. Dun, dun, dun. The interesting thing about this is that I had actually Googled it beforehand. I don't know, something was niggling in the back of my mind saying, maybe this is AI generated. And so I actually looked it up. And There weren't many reviews on it at all, possibly because I read it in June and it came out in March. So obviously that's not a whole lot of time for people to be reviewing it and stuff. Oh, just lost a book to the floor. No! But very few of the reviews that I did find mentioned anything about it. And later, I did realize that lots of these people who were reviewing it online had actually been sent it by the author, which doesn't necessarily mean that their reviews weren't what they thought, but they hadn't actually paid money to read the book. So that is just something to note, that may have skewed their review of it slightly. But anyway, upon checking it again while I was reading it, I did actually find a couple of reviews saying that it sounded suspiciously AI generated like-esque. And then I was like, interesting. On top of doing this bit of research, I also asked my sister if she could have a little read to see what she thought, and she literally read like 2 pages and went, "Girl, this is sounding pretty suspicious." So I fear we've got a couple of sources here that are saying something about this book does not sit right with them. Okay? Regardless of whether or not the book was written by AI, it is written badly. The grammar is poor. It repeats the same thing over and over with slightly different wording. It uses the same 3 keywords to describe things just over and over and over again, and many of the conversations between the characters make little to no sense. The only parts that were written well seemed to have been the spicy scenes, which I personally thought were great. So my personal theory is that the author came up with the idea for the book themselves, then used AI to generate everything other than the spicy scenes. Obviously, all of what I'm saying right now is just my personal opinion. None of it is confirmed, but I would like you to let me know if you have read this book, whether you thought maybe she could have been a little bit AI generated. I would love to know. I'd love other people's opinions because, like I say, I'm just going based on the vibes that I got. The vibes that I got were either way it was bad, but it definitely is feeling non-human bad. The sad thing is that the plot had great potential. So I do genuinely think that it could have been a good book, but unfortunately, the writing let it down completely. I'm going to go off track from the whole AI argument real quick to have a small rant about the characters' nicknames for each other, because they were horrifying. Oh my god. It was... So he called her baby girl, which is fine, okay? But she called him my wolf, right? Which really sounds very, very goofy within sentences, such as, "I belong to you, my wolf, and I'm yours, my wolf." Oh, don't even talk to me. Just use each other's real names. I am so serious. Oh, my wolf. Let me just... Don't piss me off. Don't piss me off. But you know what? This book constantly pissed me off. Another thing that suggests to me that Rebel Rose wouldn't be against using AI to generate books is because if you look on her TikTok account, all of it is just AI generated stuff. There's not many posts on there, but the posts that are on there are AI generated. And the fact that she's willing to use AI generated art to promote her work suggests to me that she would not be against using AI to generate her own work. You know, are you picking up what I'm putting down here? Are you catching what I'm throwing? The only reason that I didn't DNF this book is because I wanted to tick it off of my TBR. But I would not recommend it. If you do not already have it, I would not recommend you read it. And if you do read it, I would only read it so that you can give me your opinion as to whether or not you think that it is AI generated or not. I don't want to go on about this book for too long because I have many, many other books to talk about, and I'm just disappointed that I spent my money potentially funding something that, in my opinion, was AI generated. Either way, very disappointed. Wouldn't recommend her. If I could give her 0 stars, I would, but I can't, so I'll give her 1. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and now let's move on, because we have 5 other books to talk about, and I've yapped about this one enough. All right, let's get on to some more positive stuff, okay? The next book that I read in July was King of Pride by Anna Huang. Ta-da! This is a 352-page billionaire contemporary romance, and it is book 2 in the Kings of Sin series by Anna Huang. It revolves around Isabella, a bartender slash aspiring author, and Kai, a billionaire nepo baby aspiring to be CEO of his family's company.
Wow.
Kai is also a member of the club that Isabella is a bartender at. This club is called the Valhalla Club, and it is very elite and very strict with its rules, one of which being no fraternizing between the members and the staff. And I'm sure you can imagine where we go from there. Okay, that's enough information about the book. Let's get into what I thought of it. Kai and Isabella, these two are my baby girls. I love them. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Ah! They are such sweeties. Now, I am not sure how this works because I am from the Great Britain. But Kai being English really did something to me. I don't know. Like, because I'm British, my default accent is English. So whenever I'm reading books, even though I know they're American, like, I'm reading it with a British accent. However, somehow in my head, Kai's accent is more British. Now, I don't know what that's about, but I do know that I enjoyed it. And while we're on the topic of Kai, he is quite possibly the most likable dude to ever grace the pages of a book. He did not have a single red flag, I fear. The most off-putting thing about that guy is that he always wins at Scrabble. And to be honest, he can have the Scrabble wins. I'm really not that fussed. I genuinely don't have a bad thing to say about that guy, other than the fact that he was a nepo baby. But you know what? He worked his way up that ladder on his own merit, okay? And I wouldn't even care if he didn't, because he is so freaking sweet.
Aww.
He just genuinely cared about Isabella. Needless to say, I'm a big Kai fan. Yippee! Hello! Change in scenery going on. I'm back with my chickens. Yes. Where were we? I believe I was saying that I'm a pretty big Kai fan, and I stand by that. But moving on from my fangirling over Kai, I also really resonated with Isabella's character. I found her very relatable with her struggle to find purpose in her life, and I really enjoyed her character development over the course of the book. I will say, however, that I thought the main conflict was a little bit uncompelling, you know? Not that it wasn't valid, it just felt a little bit like, really? That's the issue we're having right now? Girl, don't even worry about it. That was certainly something I could move past, considering how amazing the rest of the book was, basically. I did also really enjoy the side plot of Kai trying to become CEO of his family's company. I was really invested in that, and I was also really rooting for Isabella to become an author. I wanted them to achieve their dreams, you know? Overall, I really, really enjoyed this book. I think it was such a good, like, comfort read. It was funny. Kai and Isabella had great banter. It was romantic, and it wasn't too stressful. And obviously, as with all Anna Huang books, you know that there's gonna be a happy ending. As discussed in previous videos, I love a book where you know everything's gonna be okay. So that is a huge selling point to me. And it was something I really enjoyed in this book because I felt I didn't have to use, like, too much brain power. Like, I wasn't stressed about it, and I can't stress enough how appealing that is to me when I'm reading books, because I find everyday life stressful enough. Sometimes I don't also want to be stressed about the books that I'm reading. You know, sometimes it's nice to just be like, I can pick this up, I can read a couple chapters, I can be chill, I can let myself sink into the book and not worry that they're, like, not going to end up together or that something terrible is going to happen, because you just know that it's all fine. And I really find that very reassuring. So I would definitely recommend it to anyone who is looking for, like, a calming, not stressful, romantic little comfort read that doesn't require too much brain power and that you know will have a happy ending. This is a good one. This is a good one for you, okay? And because of all of these factors, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Now let's move on to the next one. Yeah. The next book we are going to be discussing is Enemies of the State by Tal Bauer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right. Fingers crossed. Sorry if I'm not. This is one of the 2 books this month that I listened to in audiobook form, and it was about 14 hours and 15 minutes long in total. It was a pretty long one, but boy, was I hooked on this freaking story. It is a political thriller / romance between the President of the United States and his personal security guard. Oh. And it is book 1 in the Executive Office series. Now, this book was not on my TBR for July, but I needed something to listen to while I was cleaning the bathroom. This came up, and I was very, very invested very, very quickly. For a little lowdown, give you a bit of a rundown of what's going on. Enemies of the State is about Jack, who is the newly elected President of the United States, and his bodyguard, Ethan, and how professionalism between the two turns into friendship, which turns into something else. And while all this is happening, there's also a rogue Black Ops unit and also a bunch of other countries who are trying to take down America, and therefore also Jack. No! So there is so much freaking going on in this book, hence why it is 14 freaking hours long. I was listening to it on like 1.45 speed or something, but she was pretty lengthy, let me tell you. Okay, I loved this book. I was so obsessed with Ethan and Jack and their relationship. They are such a cutie little couple. But let's get into all of the other reasons why I really enjoyed this book. First up, there were literally 5,000 things going on all of the freaking time. Like, we had stuff going on in terms of like the romance plot. Then we also had stuff going on in terms of like the people who were trying to take America down. Then you also had stuff going on in terms of the like military part of the whole thing. So there's so many things going on. There were several different POVs that we were bouncing between all of the time, which really kept things interesting. And also I loved the fact that you got Jack's POV and Ethan's POV. It was so good to see what they were both thinking. You know how it is. I was gagged the entire time. I will say some of the political stuff did go over my head a little bit, probably for like 2 reasons. One, I'm certainly no expert in politics, nor do I find it very engaging in general. So like, when we had long stretches of political stuff going on, I kind of tuned out a little bit, which is my bad, 100%. I definitely could have stayed more locked in with that. But I'm being honest here. And if I'm gonna be honest, some of it did just go a bit over my head. And how the book was set out would be you'd have like a chapter in Jack or Ethan's POV, and then a chapter in terms of like the political stuff and someone in the military's POV or something. And then you'd go back into Jack or Ethan's POV. So that was kind of how it was laid out. So we were kind of bouncing between the political stuff and then Jack and Ethan, our main characters, which was nice to mix it up a bit. But like I say, sometimes I was a bit like, whoa, what's happening over here? Who are all of these people? But the second reason that it probably went over my head a bit was because I was doing other stuff at the same time as I was listening to it. So I wasn't as locked in as I would have been had I been exclusively reading like a physical copy of the book, because then you're just thinking about that. Whereas I was obviously thinking about, I need to clean the toilet, you know? You get me? So don't hate me. I was just here for the vibes. And the vibes, they were pretty grand most of the time. I do want to say the political chapters were not boring at all. Sometimes they just required a higher level of locking in than the Ethan / Jack chapters. This one is not just a light-hearted like la 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 la, I just need to read a couple of chapters or a couple of pages and then I'll move on. You kind of need to, you know, focus, which I didn't do, but I still got the main gist. Next, I will say that despite the fact that I stand by the fact that Ethan and Jack were both my baby girls and I loved them down, Ethan was low-key a bit of a red flag for the first half of this book. A little bit, I'm not gonna lie to you, okay? And I don't want to spoil the book, so I'm not going to go into too much depth. But I will say that initially, he should not have been pursuing Jack in the way that he was. Like, with the information that Ethan had, he should not have been trying anything. Okay? And yet, he was. Luckily, it did work in his favour, but he for sure could have been fired and possibly arrested.
Oh, wow.
Bro could have been in prison if it had not gone his way. But luckily, it was all fine. It did work in Ethan's favour somehow. So it is just something to note that there were certainly parts of this book where I was like, Ethan, my guy, what are we doing? Rein it in, please. I beg. It took me a second to get over that one, okay? Anyway, speaking of the fact that it worked in Ethan's favour, the spice in this book, incredible. Incredible. Now, there was not loads of it, but arguably I think that made it more effective, because when there was spice, it was so freaking well done, and it just made it more meaningful, I think. Like, we didn't need all of the montages that you often get in romance books where there are spice, and I really appreciated that. I will say the tension building and yearning on one side, at least, was very, very effective and well done. On the other side, I would say that it went a bit from 0 to 100 in a matter of pages. Not that that was necessarily a bad thing, but it certainly was a jump. If you've read it, you know. But who am I to judge? Either way, I thought it was pretty good. I did also love the whole forbidden love situation, you know? Although, considering the main character's lines of work, they were not very good at hiding anything. I am currently listening to the next book in the series, and it is really, really good. I am very much enjoying it. Ultimately, I thought that the book was really well done. It was a lot more than just a romance. And because of this, I think I am going to give Enemies of the State by Tal Bauer 4.5 stars. And that's all I have to say on that. Let's move on to the next one. Right, the next book that I consumed during the month of July was Bound and Barbed by Samantha R. Good, and this was another audiobook that I listened to, and it was about 15 hours and 50 minutes long. It's a romantasy, and it is the first book in the Fated Creations trilogy. I've also learned since listening to it that this was the author's debut novel, which just makes me respect it even more, because I thought it was so good. So the fact that this is the first book this woman's ever published? Damn, girl! Applause. I think I'm gonna have to buy the physical copy as well. Like, it was really, really good. Whew. Much like Enemies of the State, this was also not on my July TBR, but I'm very glad that I listened to it. The main characters in this book were Evelyn and Maddox. Evelyn is basically prisoner to her aunt and uncle, who took her in after her father was unalived by a Vasi, who are like evil vampire adjacent creatures. Maddox is a Cova, and Cova are basically the non-evil counterparts to Vasi. And a critical fact about the Cova is that they have fated mates. And you'll never guess who Maddox's mate is. Anyways, despite the whole fated mates thing, Evelyn low-key has trust issues when it comes to immortal beings because of the whole unalived father situation by an immortal, you know. And because of this, she is pretty wary of Maddox, to say the least. But when her aunt arranges for her to marry an actually evil man, evil, she might just have to put her fears aside and trust him. Oh, brother. This one was So good. I loved it. Oh my gosh. Hella slow burn energy, dual POV, which was so good in this. It gave me a similar rush to when I read Twilight and realized that there was a whole book from Edward's POV. And then I read that one and I was just gagged because naturally Maddox falls first and he falls hard for this girl. And it's just so good to read it from his point of view. I was eating up Maddox's chapters. My God. There's just something about listening to the guy's POV when he is just obsessed with her and she's got no freaking clue. The slow burn-esque energy of it and the yearning and the tension and all of that was just epic. So good. The FMC, Evelyn, yeah, that. She was so cool. Bad bitch, independent. I can protect myself. Boom, 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 boom. It had all of the freaking best tropes to ever exist in there. We had fated mates. We had who did this to you. We had enemies to lovers, low-key, but only on her side, but that's fine. We had he falls first. I would burn the world for you. Blah, blah, blah. Come on. Come on. Who doesn't love a romantasy with all of that in it? Please. The actual plot was awesome. It was really gripping and I enjoyed Evelyn's story a lot. And going into the second book, I'm still guessing about a lot of stuff. So we've got a good setup there. Saying all this, there is a large amount of miscommunication, which I am not a big fan of. However, for the most part, it was for understandable reasons and dealt with pretty well, other than one specific incident which did greatly annoy me, but I won't go into that because I don't want to spoil it. The actual book also left on a sick cliffhanger. However, I haven't started to listen to the next book in the series because I didn't feel hugely pulled to. And I don't know why. I think it might have been because I listened to the whole of this book basically in one day. So maybe I was a bit burnt out from consuming it so fast. So I think I'll probably listen to something else just to give my brain a break from that one and then come back to it. But I definitely will be because I loved it. I thought it was so, so good. I actually can't remember the last time that reading something drew such like visceral, physical responses from me. Like I was giggling, I was screaming, I was kicking my feet. My whole family thought I was insane for the entire duration of which I was listening to this book. Okay, they thought I was losing my mind. And I was. Also, who doesn't love a vampire-coded romance, paranormal romance, vampire book? Vampires? Sign me up. I love a vampire, come on. Obviously, they have slightly different names in this, but they're based upon vampires. And I love a vampire. So, I think this is another 4.5 stars for me. For sure. For sure. Considering as well that this was a debut novel. Girl, yes! We need to give this woman her flowers. So, I would 100% recommend Bound and Barbed by Samantha Argood. Go read it, you guys. Go listen to it. Do something. Something with it. Because it was immense. Although the name is pretty crazy. When I was telling people I was listening to Bound and Barbed, they were like, Ah, you're listening to what? Say what? Okay, I just had to close the curtain because I was kind of being blinded by the sun there. Goodness me. But anyway, moving on to our second to last book, King of Greed by Anna Huang. Here she is.
Wow.
This book is another contemporary billionaire romance. It is 352 pages long and it is book 3 in the Kings of Sin series. Okay, the main characters in this book are Alessandra and Dominic, and the two of them begin the book married. However, that is not the case for long, because Alessandra, who has endured years of mistreatment and neglect, has had enough, and she files for divorce. Get ready with me to get a divorce. Get ready with me to go to divorce court. That was Alessandra. Much like Michaela Noguera, Alessandra was also getting ready for divorce court. Get ready with me to get a divorce. And get a divorce they did. Uh-oh. However, Dominic is not keen on this idea, and he is determined to win her back. at whatever cost. Ooh. I don't know why I became a ghost then. La 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 la. Okay. Now I was very intrigued to read this book because it's kind of a second chance romance vibe kind of situation, which I haven't seen from Anna Huang before, and I really enjoyed it. Much like the other books in the Kings of Sin series. I was a big fan of both of the main characters, and I was genuinely rooting for their relationship to succeed the whole time. I will say, it didn't really feel as though they ever actually broke up, because they were still low-key banging the whole time. Okay. But I did still really enjoy both of their growth individually and as a couple throughout the whole book. I was also very pleasantly surprised by the lack of miscommunication in this book, because one thing about me is I hate miscommunication. If you know anything about me, you know miscommunication and me, we are not friends. We are not friends. Like, even at the climax of the book, when it would have been very easy to use miscommunication as a plot device, I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, no, please, not the miscommunication. And then my prayers were answered. No miscommunication. And I was cheering. Yeah. As with all of the other Anna Huang books, I really enjoyed the rest of the plot alongside of the romance. It was very gripping. It was very exciting. It added a lot more weight to the whole situation, and I thought that was great. I really genuinely loved Alessandra as well. She was so lovely and such a sweet gal. I was really rooting for her to be happy at the end of the book, regardless of what that meant. And I do think that that's something that Anna Huang does really well, especially in the Kings of Sin series. She creates characters that you genuinely want to be happy in the end, for the most part at least. The women, for sure. The men could go either way. I'm looking at you, Dante. You walking red flag. And freaking Josh. Don't get me started on Josh. Despite the lack of miscommunication trope, there was another trope in this book that I do not like. But before I get into it, I will just give you a little disclaimer. This will be a little bit of a spoiler. So I'm going to put a little timestamp up on the screen to tell you where to skip to if you don't want a tiny spoiler about King of Greed by Anna Huang. Okay? Little spoiler. It's coming up. Skip now. Skip. Go on. Away with you if you don't want to hear it. Are we ready? The pregnancy trope. Ugh. We've had this conversation many times about Anna Huang books, and I still don't like the pregnancy trope, and she's still putting it in the books, which is offensive because obviously she should be trying to please me individually as one specific reader. I'm only kidding. And I will say here that I was actually genuinely happy for Alessandra and what's his name? Dominic. Their names all begin with D. Dante. Dominic. And that's it. I was very happy for Alessandra and Dominic because kids were something that they did want, and they had said that they wanted kids. So I was genuinely pleased for them. But another couple also got pregnant in this book, and I was like, whoa. Rein it in. One couple's already pregnant. Calm it down, please. And the way that the pregnancy that wasn't Alessandra and Dominic was treated was kind of along the lines of, well, they've been married for 3 years now, so of course that's the natural next step in their relationship. They're going to have kids. And I guess that's probably the case for most people. I just don't personally relate to that as someone who does not want children. I don't relate to the whole, you get married and then once you get married, you have kids. I would like many cats, but I am not popping out babies. Okay. And it was just kind of a generalization. I was like, really? Does everyone need to have babies? Because I think we've got enough kids running around at the moment, okay? Overpopulation is a thing, and I think we're suffering from it. We could definitely afford to chill. And I think we are, actually. People are having way less kids nowadays. And because of that, I do just think it was a little bit of an outdated thing to say. But yes, so that was a little bit of a gripe that I had with the book. It seems to be a common theme in the Anna Huang stories of everyone always ends up with a kid. And the only people who haven't ended up with a kid are freaking Josh and Jules. And I hate Josh. So why does he get to live a child-free life? Anyway, moving on from that, I could not, for the life of me, work out how to pronounce Alessandra's nickname, which was Ale, or Ale, or Ale, or Al. I don't know. It really haunted me, and I did look it up, and in the end, I settled on Ale, but every time it came up, I was questioning it, and that was how she was referred to for the majority of the book. So, although that was a personal me issue, I did struggle with that one. I was like, how do I pronounce your name? Girl, please, tell me. So I hope that I got it right there with Ale. I was kind of reliving the experience of Throne of Glass, where I pronounced Kale, Chow, for like the first 3 read-throughs of that series. And then I realized on like the 3rd or 4th read-through that it was actually Kale and not Chow. And I don't think I've ever fully recovered from that. Overall, though, I think King of Greed is another 4 stars for me. I really, really enjoyed it, and I am super excited to read the next book in this series. The final book that I read in July was A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the end of this book was a long time coming for me. I started it in May, stopped reading it because I wanted to concentrate on reading my June TBR, and then I picked it back up again in July to attempt to finish it. And I would say it was worth the wait. It is a 419-page Nordic-inspired romantasy book, and the first in the Saga of the Unfated series. It revolves around Freya, whose chopped husband sells her to Jarl Snorri, unfortunate name, who promptly makes her fight his son Bjorn
To the death.
However, Freya is a shield maiden, so she does not die. Yay! She does, however, then have to swear herself to Snorri because prophecy told him that whoever controls her fate will rule the world, or something along those lines. And that is how our poor girl Freya ends up kind of married to Snorri, whilst also definitely crushing on his son Bjorn, who has been sworn to protect her from the hordes of people who want her unalived. Wow. Okay, let's get into what I thought of it. I really enjoyed the world that Danielle L. Jensen created in this book. The cold, Nordic-inspired Viking vibes. I was a big fan. I also really appreciated the fact that there weren't any major lore dumps right at the beginning of the book, which allowed me to really get into the storyline before they started like throwing information at me. And as someone with an attention span shorter than the amount of time it takes Donald Trump to fall asleep at any sports event, I really appreciated this. I would 100% call this book a slow burn. And one thing about me is I love a slow burn, okay? Because I am certainly guilty of losing interest in a book after the characters get together. Like, all the tension's gone. I'm like, okay, well now what? You know? But thankfully, that wasn't an issue here. There were also some awesome plot twists in this book, which gave us a really, really exciting setup for the next book in the series, which I will definitely be purchasing. In terms of characters, both of the main characters, Bjorn and Freya, were very well written and also believable. They both had their faults and imperfections, you know, very human, unhuman people. And ultimately, I really went on a roller coaster of emotions when it came to my feelings towards both of them. As it stands right now, I am not friends with either of them. They have both pissed me off in various ways. However, this has almost compelled me to read the next book more, because I need to find out if they're going to get their acts together and lock the frick back in. Overall, I loved the vibes. The main characters were both so freaking messy, and the pacing of the story, in my opinion, was perfect. So I think I'm going to give her a 4.5 out of 5. And that is it.
Yeah.
We have made it to the end of all of the books that I consumed in July. And I'm pretty proud of myself for this month. I think that the audiobooks really helped like bulk out the amount that I was able to get through, hoping to keep that momentum going for August. So I think that's all from me for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. If you want to see what I plan to read during the month of August, maybe consider subscribing, because then you can see when I post my August TBR, and then we can discuss. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.